Good evening and welcome. I'm Vivian Schmidt. I'm the Jean Monnet Professor of European Integration and Director of the Center for the Study of Europe here at Boston University. On behalf of the Center, I would like to welcome you to the EU Inside Out. It's a panel discussion with Petr Gandalovic, Ambassador of the Czech Republic to the United States, and Petr Kmec, or Kmec, or you will, Kmec. You will correct me. I knew that my pronunciation was not quite right. Ambassador of Slovakia to the United States. This event takes place as part of a series of conversations with European ambassadors, and it's funded in part by a grant from the European Commission Delegation in Washington to our Center for the Study of Europe. We would, of course, like to thank the Commission for their support for this important initiative. We'd also like to thank the Center for Law and Finance and Policy and the Czech-Slovak Association of Boston for their generous co-sponsorship. Finally, thanks to Igor Lukas, Honorary Consul of the Czech Republic and Professor of International Relations and History, and Peter Muzila, Honorary Consul of Slovakia, for their assistance with tonight's event. Petr Gandalovic, if I've gotten that right, has been ambassador of the Czech Republic since 2011, a graduate of Charles University in Prague. He was one of the founding members of the Civic Democratic Party. From 1992 to 1994, he served as Deputy Minister of the Environment. From 1994 to 1997, he was Senior Director and Advisor to the Minister for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. From 1997 to 2002, he was General Consul of the Czech Republic in New York. He then served as Mayor of the city of Ústí nad Labem. He was Minister of Regional Development and finally Minister of Agriculture from 2007 to 2009. Petr Kmec, has been Ambassador of Slovakia since September 2012. He earned a graduate degree in International Relations at the Moscow State Institute of International Relations in 1990, and a degree in International Law and Legal Studies at Comenius University in Bratislava the same year. He later worked for the Federal Czechoslovak Foreign Ministry and Slovak Foreign Ministry. Between 2000 and 2003, he was Deputy Ambassador in Israel. Between 2003 and 2005, held the same post in the USA. Later, he worked as head of the Office of the Foreign Minister and as a Slovak ambassador to Sweden. As most of you know, 2013 marks 24 years since the Velvet Revolution that put an end to communist rule in Czechoslovakia, and 20 years since the Velvet Divorce, or the breakup of Czechoslovakia into two independent states. The ambassadors will be discussing subsequent developments in their countries, in particular since joining the EU. Questions to be pursued include what the EU is becoming, how its policies and institutions are evolving, how its role as international actor is enhanced or not in response to new global challenges, and why, under conditions of globalization, its relationship with the United States remains more important than ever. I would also like insights into your views of the Eurozone crisis as well. The conversation will be moderated by Alan Berger, retired editorial writer on international affairs at the Boston Globe. Alan graduated from Harvard in History and Literature, took an MA in Comparative Literature from Cornell, taught at MIT in the Humanities Department, and served as the Boston Globe's editorial writer on international affairs until retiring in 2011. We expect the conversation to last approximately 90 minutes, after which you are all cordially invited to join us for a reception, and please remember to turn off your cell phones. Thank you. So, Alan, it's over to you.
Well, each of the ambassadors will make a statement, and then we'll have a question and answer period. I'll say this now, and I'll probably say it again. When you ask questions, have them end with a question mark. So would you like to begin?
Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you at such a prestigious university. I appreciate you coming and giving us the preference over the World Series. And also, I understand that this program is actually being paid for by the EU. So we decided to at least try to be positive about the EU. And then finally, we actually designated roles that Peter will be the good cop and I'll be the bad cop. And I'll try to be brief so that there will be some more room for the questions. I prepared actually 4 statements or maybe provocative issues to provoke your questions. First, theory. The euro is not the cause of the crisis. Maybe quite a surprising one, but I think that is true because I'm convinced that it is the unsound policies of individual states that are actually the cause of the euro crisis. We, as you know, differ. We've been together until '93, and the character of economic transformation has been or had been very similar until the separation, obviously, and eventually the two economies went its own way. So the Czechs do not use the euro, Slovaks use the euro, and so you can see some of the similarities and differences. For instance, Slovakia, as a country that uses euro, has actually weathered the economic crisis much better than the Czech Republic. As a matter of fact, you have the growth over 2%, while the Czech Republic is still struggling around 0, and we'll be happy if there will be 1% growth in 2013. So the theory that the euro is not the cause of the crisis, but it is the policies of individual states. I think the Slovakia may serve as a proof. Does it work? It stopped working. Okay, I'll speak aloud. So Slovakia, as a country that uses euro, didn't experience such a crisis as, for instance, Greece, which has unemployment over 25% and a drop in GDP of more than 7%. We may argue that euro actually covers the symptoms of a disease. It was the case in Greece, where Greeks were able to borrow at a very favorable rate until it was clear that they were not going to be able to repay it. And also, euro obviously makes it more difficult to cure the disease, because a country that gets itself in a crisis cannot devaluate, cannot make its central bank to buy its own bonds, buy its own debt. Obviously, as a result of that, the Czechs may not be very much willing to adopt the euro in any foreseeable future. We keep our koruna, and some people actually enjoy that the koruna is a stable and strong currency, while other people obviously complain that it is too strong and makes exports too difficult. Secondly, the Czech Republic, as I said, has been not doing so well in the recent 1.5 years, 6 quarters, and we may serve as an example of the dilemma between austerity policies versus growth stimulus. In the Czech Republic, the center-right government declared as its goal, as its objective, to squeeze the debt or the deficit under 3% of the GDP. This effort actually was a very painful exercise that needed government investment to be decreased by more than 12%, and actually resulted in a very significant drop in domestic demand. The Czech Republic, being an export-oriented country, still is doing very well, or relatively fairly well in the exports. So while domestic demand takes away at least 2% of the GDP growth, the exports fix it to be around zero. Of course, the discussion whether austerity or stimulus has been around very as an intense debate recently. I think it needs some time to be decided, because these policies may have a rather adverse effect in the short term, but may actually become a good grounds for future growth in some future. Maybe we can take Latvia as one of the examples that after a very significant drop in demand in GDP, they've been actually picking up very well recently. The third theory, I think it's rather a statement. Of course, the EU is now a practically two-speed organization. Obviously, the European Union as such, with 28 members and 17 Eurozone, 17 members of the Eurozone. Unfortunately, the dealing with the euro crisis has been dominating all the political discussion within the European Union. So there is this effect that the European Union has been sort of abandoning many of its important reforms and policies while being over-consumed with this debate about the future of the Eurozone, and consequently about institutional arrangements or institutional reforms that the Eurozone crisis has actually has brought as necessity. So while here in America you deal with the purely economic crisis, maybe to some extent, I'm not supposed to comment on that, but let's say a little bit of misunderstanding in Washington. In Europe, we deal with actually a substantial problem of institutional reform of its very architecture. And of course, this simple equation that the monetary union needs a fiscal union, that needs a political union, works well, or sounds easy, but is easier said than done, because obviously the fiscal union would actually need the Brussels to be responsible for much bigger portion of the European GDP than it is now, because it's just around 1%. Such a fiscal union that's now being discussed in the form of the fiscal compact and perhaps in the banking side, the banking union itself would need a much stronger political and democratic oversight, which is obviously not going to happen, because this is surely not the case with the European Parliament, and this is not going to be soon happening, that the political union would actually work as you know it here in America, that nations would not, or the voters would not regard nationality of a politician to vote for, but the political agenda that would actually be the reason why I vote for this or that politician across the entire Europe. This is not going to happen in any foreseeable future because the nation state is and will be for many, many years to the future the foundation of our democracy. So the third point I'm leaving open because I do not want to sound too critical, too pessimistic, but on the other hand, I do not have any answer to that dilemma. Maybe the fourth and final remark, I might end on a more optimistic note. I think we have to take into account that the EU has been or was built on those four freedoms of movement, the movement of people, money, capital, and services. This is actually an unfinished job. And as I said, unfortunately, recently the Euro crisis has overshadowed these efforts. We stress that there is a lot to do in these reforms or measures to be put in place. For instance, the free movement of services is very, I would say, not ideal. It is hindered by many regulations where protectionism is actually disguised behind all sorts of hygienic or quality of labor conditions criteria or certificates. So in practice, it is very difficult to move services across Europe freely. It's much easier with money. Capital is now being, I would say, a little reversed recently in connection with the banking crisis in several countries. So what we say is that there is a lot of work to do to strengthen and deepen all these four fundamental freedoms on which the European Union should stand and is supposed to be its core purpose. Recently, as you know, President Obama declared as his priority to push the TTIP, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, and I see it as not only a chance for both continents on both sides of the Atlantic to boost our bilateral trade, but also a chance to get rid of many of the unnecessary regulation in Europe, because while we will be actually debating about converging our regulatory systems, we may even as well come to the idea that we might just get rid of some of those regulations, some of those certificates, some of those stamps to be necessary for doing business. So this is my optimistic ending, that we on both sides of the Atlantic may find our way of the crisis with going forward with the talks about our transatlantic trade and investment partnership. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening. First of all, let me thank Professor Schmidt, the Center for Study of Europe, for organizing this discussion. We appreciate it very much with my Czech colleague. Also, I'm honored to sit next to Mr. Berger of Boston Globe, from whom I should expect tough questions, of course, because you know, there is a lot of questions about Europe, European Union, the situation, but this is why we have this discussion, and it's very important also to listen from the US audience how you see the situation from the other side of the Atlantic. So we are looking very much forward to your questions as well. I would like to bring you the perspective from three angles. First, I would like to give you some Slovak specifics, how we see the situation from within on the European, transatlantic and global perspective. Then I would like to comment a little bit on European situation from within, and then we can look also at some EU challenges from the perspective of global affairs. When it comes to the first point, as you know, and as Peter mentioned, Czechoslovakia split in 1993, and we face different challenges. Alongside with other Central Europeans, we had three main tasks: to transform our societies from centralized economy into market economy. That was a huge task. Then we had the challenge of integrating ourselves to the European Union, to NATO, and other international bodies. Then suddenly it came the challenge of globalization, when the other Western Europeans and the rest of the world were preparing the strategies for joining the globalized markets. We had these two parallel challenges, and above all, Slovakia had the fourth great challenge. It was building the society from the scratch. So alongside with building the new society, democratic society, we had to build a political nation as such. Those processes actually left a lot of impact on every individual in Czech Republic and Slovakia. So every Czech and Slovak has its own individual story to tell. Some stories are very positive, some stories are less positive. So the situation is really different. The societies are really heterogeneous compared to this homogeneity of the society from the past. So we also face these challenges from the integration of the society as such. What happened in Slovakia in those 20 years? We expected that this would be the processes for 2 or more generations to come, but within 20 years we suddenly appeared to be full-fledged members of the European Union, NATO, OECD, and other international bodies. Slovakia went even deeper in the integration. We adopted euro in 2009. The economy has been showing very positive figures, sometimes reaching even 2-digit numbers. Slovakia got nicknames like Tatra Tiger, Detroit of Europe, in the positive connotation at those times. But then in 2009, economic crisis hit the global and financial markets, and we felt it all. Some countries felt it much more negative impacts, some countries a little bit less. Slovakia was left somewhere in the middle, as geographically and also with the structure of economy, we belong to northern part of Europe rather than to the southern wing. So we were left with the developments rather that we could see in northern part of Europe. And as Peter mentioned, euro currency helped Slovakia very much to stabilize the economy in macroeconomic terms. So we profited from joining euro in 2009. That was actually the year of beginning of the crisis. So we were, I would say, the winners of integration into the eurozone. But this is not the end of stabilization, because the challenges are great, and now we are at the same footing as our Western European partners in the European Union, but also as the United States over the other side in the Atlantic. And that's the challenge of building the intelligent economies from the point of view of more R&D intensive industries, more competitive from the point of view of attracting creation of the startups, more investors, and this is the challenge for the whole West world. And we have been lagging behind in these considerations because of those developments that we had to experience during the 2 decades. So we had to focus and to put all of our resources to these new challenges. Slovakia is in a good position that keeps a very strong manufacturing base, and it has also a potential to build new technologies, especially in IT areas. And we all know that there'll be winners in the future who will be able to marry both bricks and clicks. And Slovakia belongs to the group of countries that can join the digital natives very soon. And we expect that with those introduction of new IT technologies into the current manufacturing base, we can build the new vision of our economy. The second point I would like to touch upon, and it will be a addition to what Peter said, that's the situation in the European Union. Current developments within the EU show positive developments in general terms, because in the second quarter of 2013, European Union and Eurozone ended the recession. The more than expected growth in largest economies like Germany, France, and the United Kingdom show that the trend could be upswing and positive in the coming future. That's very positive for Slovakia because 2/3 of its exports end in the European Union markets. So we expect also rather positive development. For this year, we will be reaching the growth of GDP up to 2%. Next year, it's expected that we will grow about 2%. But there are challenges, especially in the area of public finances. We have to bring still our public deficit below 3%. We hope that it will happen this financial year, and in the next financial year we will go even deeper. Also, structural reforms are a challenge with the inflow of European funds. We are able to invest in more prospective parts of the economy. So we hope that in coming years we'll avoid the situation in some countries of the European Union. What are the challenges for the European Union? Europe, as you know, keeps the dynamism when it invests also to its domestic development, but when it invests also in its neighborhood. So the EU enlargement is a really very important part of functioning of the European institutions. Slovakia, alongside with other Central Europeans, is supporter of further enlargement into Western Balkans. We have a number of positive processes, even recent success stories like Croatia. We work now very hard on a success with Eastern Partnership in Vilnius Summit that is to be held in a month's time. Of course, there is, as you can see, there is a pressure of Russia to persuade some of the countries of Eastern Partnership to join customs union. So we are trying to work very hard before the summit with those aspirant countries to sign DCFTAs, comprehensive free trade agreements. including association agreements and free liberalization, visa regimes. And the second issue, it was mentioned, it's the economic and trade aspect, and we look very much forward to signing the TTIP very soon. That will be actually a new trendsetter in world trade, and we expect that this will also set principles and rules for other regions. The last point I would like to make is the regional cooperation. The regional dimension within the European Union is very important part, because building coalitions and promoting interests of the region is very important part of the EU policies. You know that we try to build the Visegrad group agenda. It's a long-standing, sometimes painful process. We worked closely on integration processes before we joined EU and NATO. There was a certain period of time where Visegrad was not so visible on the international scene, but now we are coming back, and I think that the interests of all countries in the region, both from the economic, political, but also military areas coincide. So I think that we can see much more structured cooperation. In 2016, we'll be finishing our preparations for the EU battle groups. That's part of the EU common security umbrella, but the aspiration is to keep the battle group together for the years to come. And it will be also interesting year for Slovakia, that will be holding the presidency in 2016. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you both. Let me begin by asking a couple of questions, and then we'll take questions from the floor. First, the Czech Republic is about to have an election this weekend, and from what I can gather, there's the Communist Party is doing extremely well in opinion polls, and there may be a difficult decision that the Social Democrats will have to make, whether to accept communists into a coalition government. So first, do you think that will happen? And what will be the attitude of the other countries in the European Union? I'm thinking of someone like Angela Merkel, who came out of East Germany, has a certain pronounced aversion to communists. And what can you tell us about how that affects the relationship of the Czech Republic to the EU?
Well, first of all, I think that you didn't mean to compare the past of Chancellor Merkel with the communist by any means, because she was actually the part of the opposition.
No, that's what I said. There's her aversion to.
Yeah, aversion. I probably overheard that. So the point is that I think that the Communist Party has actually stable support, and that's the rest that's in motion. In general, Czech public has grown very distrustful towards traditional political parties, mostly on the right, in part because of the austerity policies in recent years. From the other point of view, as a result of a number of scandals that have been uncovered recently. So the right will not win the elections. The left, represented by the Social Democrats, will win, but the question is how big, and if it is enough for them to maybe create a one-party government backed by the Communist Party or some other party, or if it is that they will not win enough and will have to join with the new political subjects that are about to enter the parliament. As I said, as a result of the distrust towards the traditional political parties, there is a big demand for something new, something almost non-political, which is obviously, if you run for an office, a little bit contradictory. But it always emerges every 4 years, every elections, that some people say we are not as like the others, we are not corrupt, and we will manage the state as we have managed our companies or whatever else. So you've seen that around Europe, and we have the same thing in the Czech Republic, and I mean, Saturday evening we will know more.
Thank you. Ambassador Kemets, shortly after joining the Eurozone, Slovakia voted against, it was the only country in the EU, against bailout, which was aimed at Greece at the time. And then there was a government change immediately and voted for it. Of course, in these parts, we'd like to have something similar with the elimination of the people who almost drove us over the default cliff. My question is, given that drama, today, is Slovakia more inclined to the notion of ever greater unification in the European Union? And if not, why not?
Thank you very much. Yes, you are right that those were very difficult times for decision making in Slovakia. We became kind of tea partiers in the Eurozone, and it was a really tough decision because different argumentations during the ratification process on bailout to Greece were used, including whether we should bail out richer countries that got into fiscal troubles, while Slovakia has to meet its own requirements, and as you know, bailout counts against the debt of the country. So we had to save ourselves more in order to make the bailout. And at that time we had 4 political parties coalition, and it was really a tough decision. One of the parties opted not to vote, so there was an immediate fall of the government with new elections. After the elections, the central left government came to power. That is, one has to say, more inclined to the core of the EU integration, and supports much speedier political integration of the European Union. So currently we can say that Slovakia belongs to those who are promoting faster political integration of the European Union.
Thank you. We'll take questions now from you. And as I said before, please make the question a real question. So the floor is open to questions. Yeah, there are microphones on either side of the room, and you can just go there, and first person in line will ask question.
I have a question to the social security benefits. I find out that a few years ago, the benefits in Czech and Slovak Republic was about 3 times less than in other countries. Is there any development in it, and how the Czech and Slovak people could look at it, because it looks like they are supporting the countries who don't have balanced budget. So I wonder if you can put some lights on it.
Well, I would say you cannot use the exchange rate to compare pensions country to country. You have to look at the ratio between costs, living costs, and perhaps we could even use the average salary towards the average pension, which in the Czech Republic is slightly below 50% now. We would be happy if it was rather over 50%, but it's not possible, and this is why the previous government introduced so-called second pillar of social security, which is actually some sort of an equivalent of 401k system. So you set aside some part of your social security payment into a private fund under the government supervision. This has been quite controversial because the Social Democratic Party as well as the Communists did not agree with the introduction of this system, and again we will know more Saturday evening.
To an addition, social benefits and the income in general is a controversial issue from the perspective of also of competitiveness and attractiveness of the economic environment. Immediately you increase the salaries and benefits to the less competitive level, the manufacturing base will weaken, and that's what our countries have been doing quite successfully to keeping the balance between the income and competitiveness for the investors. Of course, the purchase parity power of our population is not such as in Western Europe yet, but the tendency of the real growth of income is positive. Of course, taking away the economic crisis in recent years. But in 2 decades, I think that we have been catching up very successfully. We try to measure it within the European Union through the EU average. If you take Slovakia, Slovakia was joining European Union with 48% of EU average. Now it enjoys 74% of EU average. So the jump is really remarkable. But we have to support it with better social situation of the population.
I do have a question. In the past century, Czechs and Slovaks witnessed roughly every 20 years major event where it collapse of Austria Empire, or rise of Nazis, communists, Soviet invasion, and collapse of communism. It's been roughly 25 years since Velvet Revolution. So my question is, do you see any possibility for any event in a roughly next 20 years? Or do you think that both countries are now safe in Europe, or is Europe danger, or could you comment on this?
Well, it has to be emphasized that this is one of the biggest achievements of the European Union, that there hasn't been any war on European soil, of course, except the Balkans. So the answer is no. I hope that there won't be any more 48s and 68s. 98 was quite uneventful. 2008, I don't very much remember. So I don't think so. I hope not.
Yeah, just to add, no revolutions or invasions, please. So we need evolutionary developments now, and we need to stabilize from within. And we also have been sharing our own experiences to the others in order to avoid the mistakes we did. But Sometimes it's successful, like in Western Balkans, in Eastern Partnership, less successful in Southern neighborhood, in many countries. But I think that from the perspective of security and stability, I think we are on the safe side, I would say, with integration.
I forgot to await Lehman Brothers, obviously. But that was not our. We didn't do it.
But there were some waves that washed that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
As we in the United States move from sequester 1, and I'm sure we're going to go to sequester 2. I'm just back from Washington, and we're going to have significant cuts in military participation in NATO. I think it's inevitable, especially if we go to the next round of sequester. I wonder what you can tell us about what you think the effects would be on the zone and on EU if we have significant cuts.
Začněte.
Yeah, tough question because, we have had kind of sequester in military expenditures for some time, and we have been suffering with, especially with the part of military budget when it comes to procurement and innovations. I think that the answer for this is deeper integration in the region, to pool and share within the Visegrad group countries. We have been working on that. The most perspective way of integrating our militaries goes through the cooperation of former Czechoslovakia, but that also happened in the north, that not all the Nordic countries started cooperating together at the same time. So I think that we might be setting an example in the region for that. So I think that in public finances, there might not be a kind of positive developments when it comes to military expenditures. European Union is also looking into pooling and sharing approaches, and I think that there will be a number of developments. The coming summit of the European Union will be devoted to common and security foreign policy, where defense cooperation and defense industry will be part of the discussions of the leaders.
I just add that we've been trying to persuade the US to stay in Europe, at least in some form. As we all are going to pull out of Afghanistan, we need to find a way of exercising together to keep the interoperability going, so that we don't lose this capability to work together. And I think that there might be ways how to do it for less if we find more efficient ways how to pool and share our resources.
First off, thank you very much for coming to BU. We appreciate it a lot. And I would like to ask, you mentioned earlier the pressure that is coming out of Russia for Ukraine to join their economic union and not enter into further economic union with the EU. As countries that were formerly under the influence of Russia, what advice are you giving the other European Union members in how to counteract that strong Russian rhetoric?
Well, I wouldn't say we are giving anyone advices. We cooperate. We definitely support Ukraine to enter the agreement on deep and comprehensive free trade agreement. We cooperate through the Eastern Partnership program, that is a European Union program, with civil society. We support non-governmental organizations. So we think that these measures will eventually create an atmosphere in these countries that the public of these countries will make the right decisions on their own.
Our lesson learned from the EU integration is transform your economy, comply with EU standards, and European Union will embrace you, because the political will is there. We just need to work together with our Eastern European partners to comply with criteria and work together.
Yes, thank you very much for some wonderful remarks. So I have three issues that I'd like to raise with you, or actually have you respond to. And the first is how you see your neighbor, Hungary, in terms of issues of democracy, a government that has become increasingly, shall I say, authoritarian. How do you see that? Do you see that as a threat? Not, I think, to you, but to sort of the nature of the EU itself and its push for democracy. So that's question number one. Question number two has to do with the fiscal compact, where, if I'm not mistaken, the Czech Republic is only one of two countries to opt out, along with the UK, whereas Slovakia agreed. So I'd be interested to know the differences of views and why it is that the Czech Republic opted out. And the third has to do with deeper economic union, Eurobonds, a stronger European monetary fund-like entity, deposit insurance, not just banking union. Do you agree? Do you think your countries agree? Would you have the same approach to these sorts of issues or not? And what would that approach be? Deeper integration, but Slovakia is worried about the money, and the Czech Republic is not part of the euro. So I'm just curious to see how you'd respond to these. Thank you.
So the Euro country first.
Yeah, let's start. Thank you very much. Very thought-provoking questions, difficult ones. As a neighboring country, it's very difficult, to comment on the situation in Hungary. Of course, they are our neighbors. We have had hundreds of years of common history. I would say that one part is the domestic political developments and self-recognition of its own history. That's a natural process within the country that the country has to absorb by itself. The second part is the rise of extremism in the society. That's unfortunately the feature all around Europe. So we have to fight it commonly. Slovakia has its own developments domestically. Luckily enough, those forces are not so strong as in other countries of Europe, but this is the European feature. So I wouldn't just classify it for Hungary. Those situations that appeared, in communication between Brussels and Budapest. We had it also in the past, in the 90s, with the times of Mečiarism, and our own experience is that the society has to deal with it domestically. Actually, we believe that public sector, the civic society in Hungary is strong enough to face any kind of expressions of non-democratic kind of leadership, and I think that it has been working. That in every time when there were some expectations that Hungary might be moving to a direction that also Brussels criticized, the public went out to the streets, and I think this is the healthy developments. It happened in Slovakia, and I think this is the feature of democratic society. When it comes to a fiscal compact, Slovakia, as I mentioned, is for deeper integration. So we support all the measures that that would bring order into this financial mess that happened in the European Union. We have been lucky because at the beginning of 2000s, we reformed our banking system. It cost us 30% of our GDP, so it was really very harsh intervention into our banking system, but it worked out, and that's part of the success story of Slovakia. So we are actually on the side of keeping the fiscal and also banking sector in order. Deeper economic union, we are ahead of those or supporting the countries that are in favor of the integration, deeper integration. Of course, the question of Eurobonds is a very sensitive one from the perspective of larger countries where the bailouts are really very sensitive issue. We'll see after the German elections how the situation will evolve. I think that with the Grand Coalition, the discussions will be much easier to make when both major political parties are in government rather than one of them would be in opposition. So I think that we might be witnessing faster developments than before the German elections. Thank you.
Well, sometimes it happens that in America things look more black and white, and America has a tendency to overreact towards some problems. I think it's little known that in Hungary, for instance, they passed quite strict laws against those marches, and it's actually enforced, and I think that maybe other European countries should follow suit in terms of prosecuting neo-Nazis as strongly or fiercely as Hungarian government did. Maybe, if I'm not mistaken. Fiscal compact. Of course, as I said quite a number of times, we are going to have a change in government, so it's difficult for me to represent a government stance that is just about to be formed. But from the mere logic of the whole thing, the fiscal compact actually is an attempt to enforce rules that have been around for many, many years, since Maastricht, so-called Maastricht criteria. So the question is why these rules have been so many times broken by those very countries which actually now call for more stringent enforcement of those rules. So it was more or less a political debate because the government which went out of the office about half a year ago. This government, as I said, made it as its own, maybe biggest priority to squeeze the government deficit below 3%. So this very government that didn't agree with signing the fiscal pact actually fulfilled the Maastricht criteria, and it was more or less a principal debate about this very question of democratic deficit or democratic oversight over enforcement of different rules being in the fiscal sphere or in the banking sphere, which is the question number 3, the deeper economic union, banking union. So again, these questions definitely stay, and answers will not be easy to be found I think that the way to go is take small steps to converge the systems, but maybe perhaps on the parliamentarian or European Parliament side, some work has to be done also in order to keep all these processes under democratic control.
Could I just pick up on something that Vivian was asking, which is about the Eurobonds? Would there be a favorable attitude in the Czech Republic to Eurobonds?
Well, since we are not a part of the EU, we are not affected. I mean, it is our neighbor, Germany, that's not particularly happy about Eurobonds. And I'm afraid that it might lead into into repeating the same symptoma or the same problem that might have been the cause of over borrowing in the very beginning of the crisis, because as we all know, the bond rates were like as far from each other at the beginning of or before Euro. Then they were mostly artificially converged, so that the result was that Greece had mostly almost the same rate as Germany did, and then it went again like that. Maybe this was not appropriate, and this was perhaps a little overreaction of the markets, because they simply were very sensitive about every bad news coming from this region, and they asked incredibly impossible interest for the bonds of these countries. So it means that couple of years ago, there were these same investors were totally comfortable with ratings that was not realistic. It didn't have anything in sight. Everybody knew what was happening in these countries, and yet they kept buying those bonds. And a couple of years later, they actually reacted completely the opposite way. So with your question, the Eurobonds, it may actually lead to a similar situation, that the whole thing will be just disguised under one bond, and the core problem of the economies will not be solved as it should.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your availability to come here. I want to continue a bit on the same theme. You mentioned two-speed Europe, but I sometimes have the impression it may be a three-speed Europe, whereby the UK and the Czech Republic are sometimes find themselves in the council negotiations. I mean, the fiscal compact was just mentioned. How would you explain, is that because of the Czech politics? Is the Czech business compared to the Slovak business less driving the process to integrate further? So there's the question basically about how would you explain that the Czech Republic has a somewhat separate position sometimes? And more generally, in terms of these multiple speeds, I mean, you Ambassador, you spoke about enlargement, but do you think that the Eurozone will be like the project around which European integration will converge, or the single market more largely? And can these two be reconciled? Because some people would say that the single market will actually disintegrate because of the Eurozone integration and new borders that are being erected. Thank you.
Well, as to the single market, we, of course, and I said that in my opening remark, we emphasize the necessity to go ahead with actually introducing the measures for single market, not only in area of commerce, but services and other areas. As far as Czech positions, obviously it was a result of having certain political parties in the government that were I wouldn't say skeptical, but somehow less enthusiastic about putting in place measures without, as I said, proper democratic oversight. That was the principal question which was behind not signing the fiscal compact, even though the government actually did the same thing that the fiscal compact would have asked for. So that's the principal thing. And again, elections may result, or perhaps will result, in a change in the government. So we may see some shift in these policies or in these positions by the Czech Republic. But that doesn't mean that some of the fundamental questions will just disappear like this.
Yeah. On different speeds of Europe and the challenge between enlargement and further integration, yeah, it's a matter of fact could look controversial, but I think that those are two mutually reinforcing processes. If you take different waves of enlargement since the 90s with Austria, Sweden, Finland, then other 10 Central European countries and Baltic states. Now Croatia, we expect that Western Balkans will be another success story in enlargement. I think that those newcomers bring new dynamism and new opportunities for broader European integration. The internal problem within the European Union is a structural one. So we all need structural reforms in order to make the whole European economy more competitive and on the global markets. So we have to work on both fronts, and enlargement is part of the success of the EU. So I would go along with it for the future.
Yes.
Hello, thank you for being here. As two countries who joined the EU as members relatively later on since it's been formed, I did want to ask you guys about further EU expansion and specifically the question of Turkey. Obviously, there are legitimate assets and strategic advantages to allowing them to enter in as a member, but also legitimate difficulties or even dangers. And it's a very polarized topic within members of the EU currently. So I just would love to hear your own opinions on if you would support that or be against it and why.
I am inclined to support Turkey's accession to the European Union. It's been the position of the Czech Republic, so I'm not in any conflict with that. But of course, as it always is, this statement is accompanied by all sorts of ifs and whens.
Yeah, the same position of the Slovak Republic. We support integration of Turkey into the European Union, providing that it complies with criteria that we had to do as well in the past. So definitely it will be rather long process still to come, because the negotiations have been strained and delayed for in several phases. Now there is after the recent European Commission's report on enlargement, there is a new impetus to speed up the integration. So technical negotiations can start. So now it depends on the political will on both sides.
Yes.
So I believe Slovakia tried an experiment in economics with a flat tax, and I'm wondering what was learned from those lessons, and maybe if anything could be applicable to the United States.
Yeah, I think that Hayek would be very happy, if it happened in the United States, but that's not seemingly feasible in the coming future. And yes, you're right. The introduction of flat tax was part of the economic reforms in Slovakia at the beginning of 2000s. It showed to be a success story in order to attract new foreign investments. At that time, we lacked the manufacturing base, and if you see it from the perspective of the time when we introduced flat text, with the current situation, we really became a stronghold in production of cars and electronics. So we possess, with the all European production of cars, we are the largest per capita producer of cars in the world. With the current crisis, we had to modify the flat tax, so both income tax and value-added tax have been increased. According to the promises of the current government, we are supposed to start decreasing gradually the value-added tax with the public finances going into order. We'll see how the income tax, corporate income tax, will develop, because it's also a political issue. So I wouldn't speculate on that. But flat tax definitely helped at those times.
I just may add that the Czech Republic also introduced the flat tax, so we followed pretty much the same route. And just recently, as with Slovakia, a new bracket was introduced as a result of, economic crisis, and some sort of solidarity tax was introduced.
Yes.
Yes. Since the issue of Hungary has been raised here, I would like to remark, perhaps, that the authoritarian nature and the possible authoritarian danger that Hungary might pose to its environment may in fact rest on an incomplete understanding of the Hungarian political situation, and it's primarily confined to the Western European left. The present Hungarian government, in fact, is a member of the largest fraction in the EU Parliament. And apart from that, I would like to thank Ambassador Kmetz for expressing his confidence that Hungary will surmount whatever problems it faces. In addition to this, I would like to ask two questions. And one of them is, why is it that both the Czech and the Slovak government hold on stubbornly to the very obsolete Beneš decrees, which essentially ordained the expulsion of the Sudeten German population, and also attempted to expel the native Hungarian population. That did not proceed to the same extent. The second question I would direct to specifically to Ambassador Kmetz, and I would like to know what his government intends to do with the Slovakian language law, which restricts use of minority languages, of which Hungarian is one. But that is not surprising, seeing that about 10% of the population of Slovakia is Hungarian speaking, and the ethnicity quotient might in fact be even higher. But in any case, the restrictions on minority languages, and among them Hungarian, and also the considerable fines that this law imposes on unauthorized use of minority languages, namely a range from 100 euros to 5,000 euros. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Regarding events that took place after the Second World War, the Czech leaders have expressed their sorry for what happened in terms of atrocities and wrongdoing during the transfer of the German and Hungarian population. On top of that, we have signed a treaty with Germany and also a declaration that actually expressed that those two governments will not burden the future with things coming from the past, and many smaller reconciliation acts have taken place during the recent period. On the other hand, there is this widely shared conviction among the Czech people that the Beneš decrees, while they are no longer in use, they are no longer actually enforced, should stay as a part of the Czech legal system. And there isn't any political force to counter that conviction. So I'm quite confident that this issue will not be open, and with our membership in European Union, this has been explored a number of times. This has been a matter of all sorts of findings of both the European Commission as well as the European Court. So I don't even think that this is an issue any longer, and we should really look in the future.
Yeah, when it comes to Slovakia, this political reconciliation started already in times of Czechoslovakia. So those political declarations were already made back in the 90s. We also signed the treaty between Slovakia and Hungary, where there was actually an expression of trying to surmount those historic deeds. We also understand and support together that the Beneš decrees are not anymore enforced, but they are part of post-war arrangement. So we see it as a part of history. When it comes to language law, this indeed have been a controversial an issue back to the second part of 2000s. A lot of discussion and corrections had been made during the government of center-right parties, where one part of Hungarian coalition joined the government. There have been a number of corrections in the law, including the abolition of enforcement of those high sanctions that were actually adopted in the original law. So I think that currently it's not part of the contention. It hasn't been discussed recently in Slovakia or in Slovak-Hungarian relations. Thank you.
I think it's now always one more question. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much for coming. I have one question about the role of capital flows in cross-border capital flows in the Czech Republic and Slovakia. I know generally over the long term, capital mobility is good for growth. But as we've seen in the 2008 crisis, you have both the Czech Republic and Slovakia, as well as many other countries, have experienced capital flight, and that had an effect on the crisis. So now, in terms of solution, you have both countries have committed to joining the euro. So and therefore, the prospect of having a sovereign monetary policy. So you can have so that tool has kind of been relinquished, and so now, you know, and we've seen, like, for example, in Poland you had the zloty, and you had and there were no capital outflows. Also, the Czech Republic and Slovakia being small countries relative to some of their European neighbors. So for both of you, do you think maybe working with the EU and in terms of having some kind of, at least for a short term, for crises, having some kind of capital controls, is that something you guys have been considering? I know that's been a big thing at BU. A lot of people have been talking about that. So, thank you.
Well, first of all, I don't think that we experience any major capital outflow, and in comparison with Southern Europe, Greece, it's never been any significant problem. Our banks, as well as Slovak banks, have experienced its own crisis in late 90s and very early 2000, which means that they actually underwent quite substantial recapitalization, and during the crisis 2008 and 9, they have performed fairly well, keeping capital adequacy on a very reasonable level. So I don't think that we ever considered closing the economy for capital movements or financial transactions or anything like that. And on the contrary, again, we actually sometimes we have seen our koruna, that's our currency, even a little too strong, maybe particularly against the dollar. With some weakening of dollar, we've been actually in a difficult position on American market, because if you take in late 90s, the exchange rate used to be 1 to 40, 42 or something. Now it is 1 to 18. So you see significant strengthening of our currency against the dollar, which results in difficulties for our exports to the US. And as far as our commitment to adopting the euro, yes, it stands in the books, but it doesn't say when. And I think that it will take some time before the Czech public and political representation considers that it is the good time to joining the euro.
Yeah, for Slovakia, as a small economy in Central Europe, the fluctuations of exchange rate used to create actually big problems, also when it comes to predictability of investments. So euro membership helps in this situation. As we have free flow of capital within the European Union, is really very difficult to make any restrictions on that, and I think it's quite a natural process, as we have had a quite strong influx of investments. We experience also some outflow of investors further east. These are especially lower paid jobs, when the Slovak or Czech economies are becoming less competitive with the productions of those lower paid jobs, they move east. But that happened also in case of Western Europe with car industry and the other segments of economy.
So I'd like to thank both ambassadors for lucid and forthright presentations, and thank the audience for asking really good questions. Thank you all.